your parents' names?
My dad was Jerry Scott Riley, and my mother's name was Ima Oreen Walker Riley.
Walker.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're married to Elwin. We'll establish that.
Senior.
Yeah. And where did you grow up?
By the time I was 2 years old, we were living at Arch, New Mexico.
Sorry. Thanks. Sorry about that. No problem. Okay. Sorry about that. I missed part of that.
Okay.
When you were 2 years old?
Well, it may have been after I was, or before, I don't know which, but in 1920, sometime or other, after we were born, my folks went to Colorado to try to find a place that they'd enjoy living. And they didn't find it up there, so we had kinfolks at Arch, New Mexico, and so they stopped by there to visit them and I guess rest a little bit, and on their way back to Big Springs. And they saw all of this water coming out of the ground. And at Big Springs, they didn't have that kind of water. You had to wait till it rained. And they just fell in love with those artesian wells.
Wow.
Now, what was the question?
Kind of different now. That's a good answer. Where you grew up. So after that, you were in Arch?
After that, we started school at Arch. It was a 3-room school building. And so we went to school there through the 8th grade. And then we went to Portales. We were in the first class that in the 9th grade that went to junior high.
Oh, yeah.
And
wow.
Then the next year we, had to go to the main high school building.
Right.
And,
oh, that's neat.
I might explain this. When I talk about me, I talk about Eva and I. I say we.
We.
Because we were together.
We're like one person. Yeah. That's the way it is with twins, I think. Can you think of a favorite book or a favorite toy that you had as a child?
My favorite pastime playing was paper dolls. And we would cut our paper dolls out of Sears Roebuck catalog, Chicago mail order catalog, and the Hermie Ward catalog. And you didn't find a big lot that had feet on them. They would be cut off, But we'd cut our paper dolls out of the catalogs and make our beds. Our beds our rooms consisted of a bed and a piece of paper just folded one time, and that was a chair.
Imagination went a lot further there.
And we could play, I say we, Eva and Toots and I, we played paper dolls up until really we were too big to play, but we played.
I don't think you're too
sometimes
big
all day long.
Now, Tootsie was how much older?
About 2 years.
About 2 years.
Younger.
Oh, younger.
Uh-huh.
I thought she was older.
And we learned how to play paper dolls that way because Nell was 6 years older than we were, and we watched them play. We weren't allowed to play, but we could watch.
Right.
And so we learned how to play paper dolls at a young age.
Well, I can remember me and Sherry playing paper dolls with your paper dolls.
And I still have
and
those
even
paper
after
dolls.
we were probably too old to be playing.
No, I don't think so. Now then, Darcy and Casey have played with those paper dolls. And I don't know what to do with them because they all want them.
Yeah.
So I don't know who to give them to.
Yeah, that might be one of those things that have to be passed around a little bit. Is there a scent or a sound that immediately takes you back to your childhood? Something that you hear or smell that you automatically go back?
Oh, I can't think of any right off.
Well, you know, for instance, when I smell a horse, a wet horse, it reminds me of my granddad. Of course, I didn't, know him very well and didn't get a chance to be around him much, but it seemed like he always smelled like a horse to me. And one of the few memories I have of him is riding on the back of the horse and thinking I was going to fall off, with him, riding the same with him, holding on to me, I'm sure, but it didn't feel like I was very safe. But even now, when I smell a horse, it reminds me of him. That's immediately what I think of,
Yeah.
And I've heard people say that a certain sound or a smell will remind them of something from their childhood, Do you ever recall something you got in trouble for when you were a child?
I remember getting into trouble. But I'm sure I deserved everything that I got. We got spankings back then when we didn't obey.
Sure.
But I remember one time at dinner table, it was in the summer, and Mama had a vine out there. I don't know what kind of vine it was, but it had little orangey things hanging down, and it's real bumpy. And she had told us not to be a-pulling them. And so I left the dinner table early, and I guess they were watching me because I got a spanking for pulling one of them. And I just didn't think I deserved that spanking.
Well, I hear.
But I imagine I deserved more than that.
Somewhere, I'll have to ask my mom about her, because somewhere she has a memory of getting in trouble, but she thought it was Lynn and Glenn's fault that she got in trouble. So
Well,
I remember that one.
I think Pat had something to do with me getting into trouble with that.
Yeah.
Because when I left the table, I didn't have any intentions of pulling that. But they saw me, I guess. And
let's see. Do you have any special memory about your grandparents, or even someone older that that you loved that was part of your life?
I didn't know my granddads. They had already passed away, but I had two grandmothers and a great-grandmother. And the great-grandmothers were in their 80s, and I think she died at 93 then, but I was getting older, and I guess it was before I was in the 8th grade that she passed away. And I always thought of Grandma Walker being this. She was a preacher's wife, so she was more or less kind of reserved type of woman. And I remembered her holding us when we were little, and she would sit in the chair, and when the older kids brought the clothes in from the clothesline, they'd put them down in front of her, and she would fold them. And even I would get on the clothes, and that was all right. But first thing we knew, we were asleep on top of those clean clothes.
A good nap place.
And Grandma Riley was, she was the kind of person that outdoor person, and she liked animal stock, you know, and we had a windmill there close to the backyard where the water would be pumped into the water tank. And when the cows had come up from the pasture to get them a drink, she'd give them enough time to get them a drink. She could not stand for those cows to lay down and take a rest. She'd go out there and shoo them off and tell them to go to the pasture. But I'm sure that helped to keep the flies away.
Right. That's probably true.
But if there's any building or anything that needed repair, she could.
She was a handy woman then. Do you remember your first Bible, when you got it, and how you got it, and how it affected you?
The first Bible that I had that was our own was the Bible that Granny gave Ewan and I when we married. And then the next one would be the one I bought.
For yourself. You still have that one?
Yep.
All right.
I still take it.
Yeah.
I still read it every night,
Still
and I
use
still
it.
take it to church every Sunday.
You know where everything is in that one. What was your first job outside of the home? Did you ever
You
work
mean for
outside
pay?
Yeah.
Well, the first job was I babysit a little boy that had parents that run the Taylor Laundry in Portales, and I kept house for her and babysit for $3.50 a week.
$3.50 a week.
I didn't buy very many things.
Yeah. How did you meet Elwyn, and how old were you, and how long did you date?
That I couldn't say for sure, but I think, well, before I got out of high school, there was a man on farming equipment, and we met. I was going toward Arch, and he was going south. And whoever, 2 or 3 that I was with, we didn't know who it was. We'd ask each other, but nobody knew who it was. But later, he said it was him. And then we had a skating night at Arch in the auditorium, and we would skate together, and a little bit, and then on guess it was, I don't know what night it was, but some of the girls of the community was trying to gather up enough boards and sticks to have a weenie roast, and we were in the road again, dragging that lumber, and he come from town, and he stopped, and we visited there in the road. The girls took their sticks and went on, and I stayed and talked to him. That was the first time he asked for a date for the 4th of July.
There's some fireworks going there.
Yeah, that was fireworks.
Do you remember your first car and what kind of car it was?
I never did have a car. E.B. had a car when we married, and then he went, when he was going to go to the Army, he traded it off and got a Model A. And then when the war was over, he traded for something, I don't know what it was.
Family car. Was there ever a person, an event, or a tragedy that affected your life?
Affected my life forever?
Well, maybe not forever, but impacted you in one way or the other.
Well, of course, there was a lot of things that affected our lives because we were from a large family and we didn't have as much as some of the other kids, and we had more than some of the kids.
Right.
And I think that affected us not so much when we were little, but, you know, like after we got into high school, and we felt like that we was from a poor family. I think that kind of affected our life.
Carried on, yeah.
And then I lost a brother when he was about 4 years older than me. And, of course, we were close. And when he passed away, I think it, you know, I had dreams about him for a long time.
Yeah. And how old was he when he passed away?
He was between 12. No, he was, maybe he had just passed his 13th birthday. He had ruptured appendix. Portales didn't have a hospital. And his appendix ruptured, and they had to take him to Clovis, and by that time it was too late to save him. I think that stayed on my mind quite a bit. And
Sure.
of course it broke the whole family to heart.
Yeah.
And it took Mama, well, Mama could cry and get to feeling better, and then Dad he kept it inside.
Yeah. Didn't
And
do.
it took him a long time to adjust to that.
Yeah. I can see that. Is there anything in your life that you'd still like to do? Skydiving or something crazy like that?
Well, that I like to do, I like to make craft stuff. I used to like to sew, and I like for the house to be clean, but I never did especially like to clean it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I enjoy the kids coming home and the grandkids and the great-grandkids.
Sure.
It's kind of hard on me now whenever I can't get around too good, but I really enjoy them coming home. And if I couldn't go to church, well, that would be something that would be terrible.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything about your life that you'd change if you could do it over?
I would try to change it, but it might not be for the better. You know, it might be worse off.
Right.
And most everybody will say that if they could correct their mistakes, they'd be willing to live it again. But to just live it again, they don't think they would. And I guess that's kind of...
Yeah.
But I told Ellen one time that you know, you hear these songs and things about death separating us, you know, and one would have to go on ahead of the other one. And I said, I just can't feature us going anywhere unless we're together. And that's it. I just can't visualize us being separated that way. So I don't know whether we walk that long journey alone to the other end of that tunnel.
Well, you won't be alone. You
So
won't be
anyway.
alone. I guarantee you. You won't be alone. You may not. He might not be by your side, but Jesus will be there, and it'll
Yeah.
feel okay.
So that, I don't know. just the way I feel.
Last question. How would you like to be remembered?
I've always wanted to be remembered as that my kids would always think of me as being a good mother, and the grandkids love me, just keep loving me, and that would be the main thing. Of course, I want everybody to love me.
Yeah.
And then since I've got older, I think of one grandson in particular that will have a hard time accepting me being gone. And that bothers me.
Well, it's going to be a while.
Well, it's closer than you think.
He'll have a chance to.
Che is the one that he comes along at church and sits by me every Sunday, and he'll love my neck and kiss me, and every once in a while he'd have to do it again, and he is 11, and he's been doing this for a long time, for 11 years. And
I've got a 19-year-old that still does that to his grandma.
And
sometimes I want to say, get off of her. I'm sure she doesn't want you hanging on her.
And it's hard to think about making our kids so sad. And I just hope that they can accept it and remember me as a good grandmother, and not have to be sad and
Yeah.
everything.
I think you'll accomplish that. All the memories will be good memories.
Well, I hope. So that's it.
That's it. I appreciate your time.